Welcome to another edition of the Burn Barrel Podcast. You know, it seems to this thing. I'm into my Borscht Belt show now, and unlike the show about Route 66, the Mother Road, I don't feel safe talking like any of the hosts of the Borscht Belt show. I don't feel it's appropriate.
Oh.
I don't feel it's good. I don't think we're gonna go there, Alice. I love them. I want to go back in the Borscht Belt. I want to be in the 1960s or 50s and be in the Borscht Belt at some of these great places, these great great hotels and resorts that were there. Like
You've been
Kutcher's.
reached out to by some Borscht Belt media people.
I know. Hello out there. Maybe we should have her on. I'll have her on something to talk about the Borscht Belt. But the Borscht Belt, you guys know, is the Jewish Alps, we call it. I don't know what that's half the Mother Road guy's accent. The Jewish Alps, which Jerry Lewis doesn't like it being called, by the way. Jerry Lewis, who used to go, and he worked at the hotels in the Borscht Belt, working in restaurants at some of them. He doesn't want me to call it the Jewish Alps because it's so much more than that. But so there you go. I'm all into it. I'm all into how the hotels operated, how they dealt with different seasons, the demise, obviously the entertainment, you know, all sorts of But these people were so smart. They were so smart. People who own these places. It all came from basically people in Jewish neighborhoods who are stuffed together in Manhattan, wanted to get out, or whatever, one of the boroughs of New York, wanted to get somewhere where they could get some cool sea breeze air and out of the stifling city. And so there used to be farmers, etc., who lived in this county in New York, who would take people in and would say you can have a room for a week, and these people would go in and swim in the lakes and this and that, etc. And then people started buying up properties there, small hotels, and then opening a larger thing, and then building a pool, and then building a golf course, and then building this, then that. And it, just attracted all of these. It wasn't all just Jewish, but this part anyway was 30 miles or so. The Borscht Belt, the Catskills. It was some place where people could go and get away and get some relief, and spend a little money and have fun. And they'd eat big there. They'd give them huge meals, and like the kind of thing you wouldn't. It's like cruise ship dining. It sounds like to me, where they didn't get that at home in whatever neighborhood they were living in New York. But they got to really overindulge and like just overeat, and so apparently there was like tons of sour cream around there which is a big Jewish thing, I guess. I gotta get Jeff Katz on.
It's because of
you know Jeff Katz, right?
Yes.
I gotta get him on. He tells me everything I need to know about Jewish culture.
It's because of the of like keeping kosher, right?
Right.
So it's like you can have dairy, you can't have dairy and meat in the same meal. But that's like why bagels and lox is a thing, right? Because fish doesn't count. Fish is neutral under kosher.
That's interesting.
rules.
And because they were kosher, they had interesting food. They had a lot of Chinese recipes they'd make as well. It's so interesting.
Well, Chinese food has almost no dairy.
Well, there you go. Thank
See?
you, Alice. Okay.
That's
Thank you for real-time fact-checking me. I appreciate it. No, but it's just fascinating, all the stuff that they had, and I'm fascinated by that. There's so much footage of the old dilapidated hotels, and of course what happened was, among other things, air conditioning came into being. And then there was Florida with air conditioning, and Sayonara Borscht Belt eventually, among other reasons. But I think people had more disposable income, more choices, etc. But I love it. I love just seeing how these places had to adapt. They had one final push in a lot of these resorts in the 80s, and it just never took. And you know what's funny? Or it's not funny, but some of these documentaries I'm watching are 10, 15, 25 years old, and it shows the dilapidated buildings where nature has crept in. An untapped resource in this country is the taggers community. The people who spray paint vandalism,
Yes.
graffiti.
They get everywhere.
They get everywhere. They got to the rooftops of everything, of little like flag poles like at the top as well. It's like they got everything in this place.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Yeah. Did you notice at Odeon Point there were some like little abandoned building looking things way off in the woods? We were at Odeon Point this weekend, and they had graffiti on them. And one of our kids commented, it might have been Anson.
Yes.
He said, Like, that's not nice to spray paint things on a building if it's not yours.
Right. But they get out there thorough. Okay, Alice. Where shall we start here? I personally, I would like to start on an amusing note. The new White House press secretary.
It's a historic day, I think.
It's a very historic day.
Start there.
It's interesting. We've never had so many moderate level to major crises in the country at one time, apart in peacetime, than we have now. But Karine Jean-Pierre made sure to spend at the first
or St. Pierre,
doesn't matter, first 3 minutes speaking about one particular person.
I just want to say a few words about how honored I am to be here with all of you today in this role, in this room, standing behind this podium. I am obviously acutely aware that my presence at this podium represents a few firsts. I am a Black, gay, immigrant woman, the first of all three.
What is going on here? Could we start the Q&A part of this? What is this? Why is there actual press conference, press briefing copy being read to the press, like the gathered White House correspondents? Anything that she's saying, prepared remarks, is supposed to be transcripted for the media to use. Mm-hmm. So she's literally reading her Oscar acceptance speech about herself. I'm acutely aware. This White House is effed. They're effed for a number of reasons, but I think she actually believes that. I think she believes that's
she is
really
acutely aware?
Important. And that this is basically, the victory has already happened. Because she's acutely aware that this is a very special thing. Hey, listen, lady, we got stuff to do around here. Be acutely aware of some of the issues, which you're going to find out in a few minutes. She is not.
Those to hold this position. I would not be here today if it were not for generations of barrier-breaking people before me. I stand on their shoulders.
You would not be there today if you didn't have certain characteristics that put you there today, okay? It's true. The administration admits it. They celebrate it every effing day, just like she's doing right now.
If it were not for generations of barrier-breaking people before me, I would not be here. But I benefit from their sacrifices. I have learned from their excellence, and I am forever grateful to them. Representation does matter. You hear us say this often in this administration.
The job is not. By the way, any press flack, and I've talked to Scott Ferguson about this, right? Mm-hmm. Scott Ferguson was a communications guy, a press flack for Ted Kennedy.
Okay.
And a reporter was asking Kennedy a bunch of questions, and then Ferguson was like walking the guy to the elevator or whatever, and the guy asked Ferguson a couple questions, which he answered. Ferguson showed up in the article that the reporter wrote. Mm-hmm. And said, Scott Ferguson says this, that, whatever. He's a press flack. He's not supposed to be showing up anywhere. And Ted Kennedy said, what office are you running for? In other words, get the F behind the scenes. This is not about you. You're a flack. You just talk and represent the you don't talk on a personal level.
But
what are we doing here?
But that's not the way it's been for a while, too. In fairness, like, the Biden administration didn't invent the revolving door of press flackery to fame and fortune in the punditocracy, right?
Well, no, it's about protocols for a flack. Alice, I have been working when I was at the Herald, we would have people, newsmakers and celebrities on all the time. The press flack's job is to not be in the shot, not be on video, not be in the camera. The press flack's job is to get the hell away. I used to know a young lady who was a press flack, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And she would always be hiding from press because you're not allowed to. She represented a museum. You're not allowed to have anything about you. But this is just totally undisciplined. And for her to be a star, that's one thing. That comes ostensibly comes later, or with Jen Psaki comes at the same time, as you're taking bids. But this is horse bleep. That this administration is doing this now with all that's going on? Right. How about this? Get some effing baby formula. How about that? Do that and have stuff to say about that. How about the real inflation concerns? Have stuff to say about that. How about another $40 billion sent over that has depleted our own armor stores and our own equipment, military equipment, so that we can, just destroy Russian tank columns? How about something that taking that serious and talking about that, or unless it's just going to arms dealers and
Friends of the Biden
gangsters,
family.
or whatever it is. But still, we're in a serious time. The Biden administration keeps telling me the pandemic's still on. Why would this ever? This is so servicing the psychotic, progressive, woke part of the party. This is insanity, this lady. The fact that she would do this is insane. And they should, any reporter worth their salt, and we'll hear from a couple of them, should test this first special person to the fullest.
And no one understands this better than President Biden, which is why his administration is not only the most diverse in history, it is filled with barrier-breaking women and men, from the vice president to the...
Holy Christ, who cares? Who cares, you dum-dum? Let me tell you something. In radio, you know, when you have a spot that's right next, if you have a 30-second spot that's right next to a news update, or let's, for instance, Dr. Dean Adele saying, some people remember this, or the Bill O'Reilly minute, whatever. Hey, if inflation's killing you, remember that it's the interest rates will be and there's the spot right next to it that's attached to it.
Right.
That spot is called an adjacency because it's right adjacent to the programming piece, the tiny programming piece. You don't tie. You wouldn't create this first stuff out as an adjacency to this content of this administration. Things are existentially too bad right now. There are too many fires right now.
Right.
You don't attach it to and by the way, we're the most diverse. That's not a good thing for diversity.
Exactly.
It's not.
It does. It only gives fuel to the people who say that you're hiring the absolute worst people for all the jobs, and that diversity is absolutely not a plus for the administration, right? Which I happen to think there's actually a lot of very talented people of color and women out there who you could choose, not based on their skin color or whatever else. I think this administration would be vastly improved by the presence of, say, Condoleezza Rice in the building, for example. Just as a random example off the top of my head.
Somebody, by the way, never celebrated for her diversity.
Of course not. But, I happen to think that diversity as a side note is not necessarily a bad thing. But you're right. When you're the most incompetent, egregiously corrupt, and self-congratulatory administration, the least popular administration, the administration with the most inflation, the most embarrassing administration on the world stage, maybe you shouldn't be saying that you're also the most diverse administration, because it doesn't really reflect that well on the people that you're supposedly lifting up. If representation matters, then I would not be pleased to be represented that way.
Right. She's saying a historic vice president. Yeah.
Historically atrocious,
She's
terrible
the
vice
worst.
president.
So, I mean, stop celebrating. And also, if somebody's going to celebrate Karine Jean-Pierre or Jean-Pierre, whatever it is, it shouldn't be Karine Jean-Pierre. Jean-Pierre, whatever.
Jean-Pierre, yeah.
It shouldn't be her. Okay, first, we're going to start in a second, but first I'm going to celebrate me. A little about me this great day, guys. This is like grossly obscene. This is such a joke.
Cabinet secretaries, to his Supreme Court nominee, to senior staff throughout this administration. When I did my first briefing as principal deputy press secretary last year, almost a year ago, I said at this podium that this podium, this room, this building belong to the American people. We work for them. It's not about me.
It's weird.
We're more than 2 minutes into her acceptance speech about her. It's not about me. It's not about me.
It's about them. It was true then, and it is very true indeed today. On Jen's first briefing, she made clear that the president's and her priority was to bring truth and transparency back to this briefing room. Jen did a great job at that, and I will work every day to continue to ensure we are meeting the president's high expectation of truth, honesty, and transparency.
Turns the page.
I also have tremendous respect for the work that you all do.
Can we start? These hyenas don't need this award ceremony. Just start the Q&A part. They need information from you. You need to start obfuscating and giving them BS spam, and they need to file for deadline and get ready for their stand-ups on the news. All you're
In
doing
fairness, some of these people might be planning to write stories on how historic she is. So
there's
that
no doubt.
answers
I
some
wouldn't
questions for some of them.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's an AP story out right now that talks about it.
No, it's not easy. The press plays a vital role in our democracy, and we need a strong and independent press now more than ever. We might not see eye to eye here in this room all the time, which is okay. That give and take is so incredibly healthy, and it's a part of our democracy. And I look forward to engaging with all of you.
Shut up! Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry. And any of you who are in PR, I'm not meaning you. I'm not meaning you. Any of you in PR who listen to the show, I don't mean you. But there's nobody less respected than a GD Flack. I'm sorry about that. Oh, give me a bleeping break. Okay, so let's start with the questions. Here's Peter Ducey. He has a very valid question for her.
President's Twitter account posted the other day, you want to bring down inflation, let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share. Mm-hmm. How does raising taxes on corporations reduce inflation?
So, are you talking about a specific tweet?
He tweeted, you want to bring down inflation, let's make sure the wealthiest corporations pay their fair share.
Look, we have talked about this past year about making sure that the wealthiest among us are paying their fair share. And that is important to do, and that is something that...
The question, birthday girl, is what does that have to do with bringing down inflation?
The president has been, working on every day when we talk about inflation and lowering costs. And so it's very important that, as we're seeing costs rise, as we're talking about how to, build a America that's safe, that's equal for everyone and doesn't leave everyone behind, that is an important part of that as well.
But mostly I'm the first lesbian black immigrant press secretary. Okay. Remarkable. So there's either two things happening right there. One, she has no idea about the subject matter, about the tweet.
I think that's part one, certainly.
What inflation would have to do with billionaires paying more money. Or two, she knows all about the subject matter that the administration knows about the subject matter. So she's up to speed, and we just got the...
That's the administration's full position
exactly.
on the subject matter, is that the wealthy should pay their fair share.
Exactly. So let's go to another question, which is also amazing.
It's been 8 months at this point, and we don't have a conclusion of that review. The president had wanted accountability. He demanded it.
This is about the Border Patrol strapping people, whipping people with reins on the border last year.
At the time, Secretary Mayorkas said that there would be a conclusion to that review within weeks. Yeah. So why is it taking so long, and is there any urgency given the fact that the administration is now preparing for the arrival of potentially new surges of migrants?
No, it's a very good question. I don't have an update on that. Department of Homeland Security, that's where you mentioned Secretary Mayorkas, that's where that review sits. And as soon as we have an update, I promise to share that, or they will share that. That would not come from here. I just don't have an update. But I understand the question.
Well, that's fine. But Peter Ducey asked Mayorkas about this from the briefing room, where Karine was sitting down, and so was Jen Psaki.
Just to go back, please, to the images of these mounted Border Patrol officers. You said on Saturday, or rather on the 20th, to ensure control of the horse, long reins are used. The person who took these photos of the Border Patrol agents says, I've never seen them whip anyone. So why is the president out there today talking about people being strapped?
So let me correct the statements in your question, if I may. It was on Friday. No, if I may. It was on Friday when I was, actually it was on Monday, I believe, when I was in Del Rio on the ground, and I made the statements without having seen the images. I saw the images on the flight back, and I made the statement that I did with respect to what those images suggested. The horses have long reins, and the image in the photograph that we all saw that horrified the nation raised serious questions about.
Did they horrify the nation?
Let me finish about what occurred. And as I stated quite clearly, it conjured up images of what has occurred in the past. Let me finish. There's also a question of how one uses the horse and how one interacts with individuals with the horse. And so I'm going to let the investigation run its course. I'm not going to interfere with that investigation. The facts will be determined by the investigators, and then the results will be driven by the facts that are determined.
And just to follow up,
How did one use the horse, by the way? I would like to know. I think the rider sat atop of the horse and interacted with the person trying to jump into the river. I think that's how one used the horse.
Pretty much. That seems like it. But everybody's an expert all of a sudden whenever something like this comes out. Every Black Lives Matter case, it's always like, why didn't they shoot him in the leg? I would have been able to handle the situation far better.
Before the facts are in, is it helpful to your investigation for the President of the United States to use inflammatory language like people being strapped?
Let me just be very clear and repeat what I've said. I am not concerned with respect to the integrity of the investigation. We know how to conduct an investigation with integrity. I served as 12 years as a federal prosecutor. There were a great deal of comments in many of the cases that I handled in the public sphere, and I know how to maintain the integrity of an investigation, and this investigation will have integrity.
I'm sure he was a historic first as well. That very competent person. So fine. Mayorkas works down the street in a different building, so maybe that's not a West Wing or 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. But Joe Biden, I believe, has a residence at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and works in the West Wing. So considering he's on record, maybe we should be asking or having answers available, Karine, to answer the question, considering the president from that room is on record.
Mr. President, you said on the campaign trail that you were going to restore the moral standing of the U.S., that you were going to immediately end Trump's assault on the dignity of immigrant communities.
This is Yamiche Elsinder, the taxpayer-funded moron.
Given what we saw
historic, too, I'm sure.
at the border this week, have you failed in that promise? And this is happening under your watch. Do you take responsibility for the chaos that's unfolding?
Of course I take responsibility. I'm president, but it was horrible what to see, as you saw. To see people treated like they did, horses barely running them over, people being strapped, it's outrageous. I promise you those people will pay. They will be, an investigation underway now, and there will be consequences. There will be consequences. It's an embarrassment, but it's beyond an embarrassment. It's dangerous. It's wrong. It sends the wrong message around the world. It sends the wrong message at home. It's simply not who we are.
The president says people working for the United States government will pay. They will be punished. They are an embarrassment. Mm-hmm. Well, I would think that maybe that would be something that...
Any follow-up, Karine? Yeah. I don't like your tone, by the way, about the historic first. It sense misogyny and potentially racism.
Of course. That's right. So that is where we are so far. Do I have something else for her? That's it, right? Porter strapped, Karine...
I think that's it. I did want to follow up a little bit on the Jeff Bezos thing because that was like what she was weighing in on there. That's why Peter Doocy asked that question, is because Jeff Bezos this weekend, we talked a little bit about this in our Patreon show yesterday, drew attention to that tweet that Peter Doocy was asking about where the White House said we need to tax rich people to tackle inflation, which is an insane thing to tweet because the two don't really have to do with each other. And then they, went back and forth, and Jeff Bezos was actually critical of the administration, which is like unheard of. Mm-hmm. So they put out a statement about it, which is why it's incredible that Karine Jean-Pierre, the president's press secretary, is pretending she doesn't know what tweet he's referring to, because earlier in the day the White House put out a statement about this exact tweet where they said, It doesn't require a huge leap to figure out why one of the wealthiest individuals on earth opposes an economic agenda for the middle class that cuts some of the biggest costs families face, fights inflation for the long haul, and adds to the historic deficit reduction the president is achieving by asking the richest taxpayers and corporations to pay their fair share. It's also unsurprising that this tweet comes after the president met with labor organizers, including Amazon employees. Aha. See? So maybe that's the tweet that Peter Doocy was talking about, Karine. I'm just suggesting the one that you put out a statement about earlier.
The one where you attitudinally, spit at, a businessman who has concerns.
Who really kept the country going during the pandemic. The whole Amazon thing, like a lot of people wouldn't have made it day to day. Like half of the people living in coastal enclaves working from home in their pajamas wouldn't have made it through the pandemic if they couldn't have ordered off Amazon. So I don't know why they're attacking him. He's done nothing wrong here. But yeah, so they're saying that he opposes the president's economic agenda because it would fight inflation. And even though spending more money obviously wouldn't fight inflation, Larry Summers did kind of weigh in and say like, oh, increasing taxes would help fight inflation because it sucks money out of the economy, obviously. And he's saying, well, if that's that's not what was the question and not what the White House is saying either. The White House is saying Jeff Bezos opposes us spending more money, which is what that is. And even though every time a government spends money or prints money or whatever, it's in effect a tax in the longer term, it doesn't mean that goes together. So Jeff Bezos tweeted today about the White House's statement. Look, a squirrel. This is the White House's statement about my recent tweets. They understandably want to muddy the topic. They know inflation hurts the neediest the most, but unions aren't causing inflation and neither are wealthy people. Remember, the administration tried their best to add another $3.5 trillion to federal spending. They failed, but if they had succeeded, inflation would be even higher than it is today, and inflation today is at a 40-year high. Really incredible stuff coming from somebody who, it's good for him to be with like where the zeitgeist is. So I think that it says a lot when you have people as mainstream as that, really. Like Jeff Bezos isn't some like radical, he's not like Peter Thiel is obviously sort of wacky and has some wacky ideas about seasteading and whatever, he's doing his own thing a little bit out there. But, Jeff Bezos is pretty like normal as far as billionaires go, I would say. I don't
know.
Like,
I guess so.
But I mean, he's even less activist, it seems to me, than Bill Gates is. I'm not saying he's like good or on our team or something, but I think, as much as you can be if you're a multi-billionaire, like he's probably one of the more normal ones. He seems more normal than Zuckerberg, I think. I don't know.
All right, moving along, Alice. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
A story that I covered on my radio show and on the Burn Barrel podcast was about the Colchester and Ledyard basketball game in February in Connecticut, where a racial slur was heard at the end of a game. Yeah,
I believe you had a young caller.
I had a caller. I had an eyewitness, a woman who was there, and I booked her, and she said, yep, I heard the swear. There was absolutely racism. And she said, can you believe that in the time of George Floyd, the people would even say this didn't happen? And that was my thing. Okay, maybe we're onto a different narrative here. But it was all the rage in Connecticut.
Refer to our girls as a bunch of N's, and we have corroborating evidence of that.
They are not going to admit being a racist. Okay, when someone are racist, there's a lot of consequences.
That's the mother of one of the players. The other guy was either the principal or whatever of it.
Personal victims to the situation who had the courage enough to speak up about it, and now we have people in power blatantly calling them liars.
Reprehensible to try to sweep under the rug racist activities towards children.
This is that's the Ledyard superintendent. Indeed. So there you go. The racism happened. People were hurt. There was harm. Yada, 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 yada. Dateline, Connecticut. Ledyard, Connecticut. State's attorney, no arrest after racial slur reportedly heard at the basketball game between Colchester and Ledyard. No arrest will be made after racial slur was reportedly heard. Now it's reportedly heard. At a February basketball game between Colchester and Ledyard, according to the state's attorney's office. Officers responded to a February 5th girls' basketball game at Ledyard High School for what police called a reported disturbance. Police say when the game ended, parents from both Ledyard and Colchester were arguing. Some people refused to leave the gym. Officers arrived and made sure everyone left the gym safely, police said. Shortly thereafter, responding officers learned that either during or after the game, someone allegedly used a racial slur, Ledyard police said. Officers confirmed that this report was made to Ledyard High School athletic director. Ledyard police say they investigated if any crimes happened after the game. As part of the said investigation, the Ledyard Police Department conducted many interviews, re-interviews, and reviewed much video footage from several sources. Police also worked with the administration from Ledyard High in the investigation. Ledyard Police then worked with the state's attorney's office in New London in the investigation. Big investigation. Sounds expensive. The state's attorney says they did not find probable cause in the case. Once again, if I could read, the state's attorney says they did not find probable cause in the case. After additional interviews and more video review, the state's attorney's office reviewed the entirety of the case, including an arrest warrant affidavit. Ultimately, the state's attorney determined that there was insufficient probable cause in this case, Ledyard Police said. In February, Colchester officials said the report of racial slurs used at the game was inaccurate. So there you go. Just another one. Potential nooses everywhere.
Exactly. And like the potential nooses and like everything else, this will go into the file, if not a real file, into a bunch of people's mental file of all the hate crimes that occurred in Trump's divided America, even forgetting the fact that it's not even Trump's America anymore, but whatever, because he divided us and caused all this racial angst, this is going to go into the hate crime file, right, with the potential nooses and the Jussie Smollett and the everything else and the Bubba Wallace and all the other hate crimes that turned out to be not really hate crimes, but only the initial thing gets reported on. None of the rest of the stuff that happens after gets reported on. I also have another question.
Mm-hmm.
You commented that this was a pretty big investigation that sounded expensive. I'm not entirely convinced, and I don't think people should use the N-word. I think it's a terrible word. I don't think people should ever say it. I think it's horrible. I'm not sure that the police should be involved in something just because somebody said the N-word, even if they did say the N-word. I'm not sure that that's worthy of a police investigation. I'm just not.
I know.
Is it a crime to use the N-word?
Maybe it is.
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And I'm sorry. I think it's a very bad thing to say. But I think a lot of things that are really bad things to say shouldn't be criminal. And people on the left used to know that. I mean, do people now even realize that what the ACLU used to be famous for was defending the right of Nazis to have free speech? That used to be the thing. The, Skokie thing in the hall.
Right.
I mean, that used to be the understanding, was that even things that we all agree are really, really bad things, people are still allowed to say them and it's not illegal. That's what's kind of incredible to me, but I guess we'll coast right over that and just skip to the fact that it never even happened at all and go from there. But still, it's incredible that it warranted a police investigation in the first place. Did that say an arrest warrant affidavit was filed and stuff? They were going to arrest somebody for saying the N-word.
I'm not sure of the particulars, but it is. I don't think I've come to a race hoax in Connecticut yet that didn't have law enforcement involved heavily.
And how many of them have turned out to be actual racial crimes?
I don't know that I've seen any that have as yet. There have been a lot of potential nooses. There have been a lot of harmful in symbols at parades and in fairgrounds. Seemingly harmful. That's right?
Yeah.
Seemingly harmful. And potentially harmful stuff all over the place. But there aren't a whole lot of hate crimes.
There was the dad.
Symbolic. Certainly there was a hate crime. Well, yeah. There was a racial massacre yesterday. But
there was the dad, but in Connecticut we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
There was the food allergy dad who called some people immigrants or something.
Right, which they said was racist. Which I don't think it is racist. It's not racist. But close enough. Just call it racist. Call it racist. Everybody should be
so that one happened at least, I guess.
Yeah, but he didn't say anything racist.
No.
He said something. He called somebody who he thought might be an immigrant, And since she might be a protected category, it then becomes he's just a racist. So that's right. Even though if he had known, she was actually a historic first at that smoothie place that should have been celebrated.
Was where the that was a Connecticut story too, right? The sorority girls who did a racist dance.
That's right.
too.
The white sorority girls did the dance of the black sorority, and yes, they were in trouble as well. That's right. That's right.
There's a lot of racism in Connecticut.
It's
like, wow.
It is,
or potential racism anyway.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's all very harmful, and as well, this is one of the reasons we're getting rid of the racist Indian names in towns. Even though now some Indians have converged onto one of the towns and said, "No, we actually like the names. Just have us keep it.
We want them to
but
keep
the,
it."
But the white people in Volvos and Range Rovers are like, no, you can't because you just stop it. Which brings me to my TikTok doctor, Alice, my top care doctor. This is a guy, an actual doctor. TikTok is such a service. I mean, I realize that the Chinese are stealing the DNA of the country and will own us all because of it, but it's worth it. I don't care. I'm ready for the end of the country. Just nuke us and just do it quickly. But here's a doctor on TikTok explaining why he's doing the empathetic and humane thing by giving top surgeries to girls
under age 18.
Under age 18.
So I'm here to clarify and speak some truths about what's happening with gender.
Okay. I'm just thankful that I wasn't on a Zoom call with this guy, because the length to which my eye roll, and probably yours, oh, God, shut up, dude. Just shut up. Just talk about how you're historic.
So I'm here to clarify and speak some truths about what's happening.
I'm never going to a doctor. I'm not, Alice. I don't care. I'll take shark
I noticed
cartilage.
he didn't tell us whose stolen land he's occupying right now.
Yeah, I did not like that, as a matter of fact.
Happening with gender-affirming care in adolescents.
Nope. I'm not going to a doctor ever again. I'm done. I'd rather just die. Just give me the panoply of cancers that obviously I have coming and just finish it. I'm not going to sit and listen to that guy with his whole thing in his vocal burn talk in that way with that tone. So I really think that maybe you should think about doing some chemo. No, you know what? I'm just going to walk in front of that truck on I-93 and die, because I'd rather do that than ever have a relationship with you.
Most of the bills that are going through right now aim to limit this care for people under the age of 18. And there's this false narrative that a lot of teenagers are having gender-affirming surgery. Most of the teenagers that are having surgery are getting chest surgery.
There's no way that in 2022... a medical school graduates and certifies that dude. There's no way. He's so effing stupid. There's no way. It can't be, Alice. It can't be.
And most of that is happening before 18 because these...
His priority, just by the way he presents his whole personality, his priority is not medicine.
Of course not.
No.
He's an activist who's chosen medicine as his
This guy is performing
tool.
For us.
Individuals didn't have access to early enough medical treatment. So using surgery as sort of this false narrative to attack gender-affirming care as a whole is not correct. The truth is that by limiting access to medical care with some of these bills, you're actually going to cause more people to need gender-affirming surgical care.
1 second here. Can you explain to people what... I can't get past his affectation and the vocal burn. Can you explain
what he's trying to say is that the reason why he has to cut off girls' breasts is because you didn't let them get drugs soon enough to stop their breasts from ever developing in the first place.
I think I'm done. If you have any points of order or action items you'd like to get to, now's the time. And if I'll leave you alone, I won't be condescending to you.
Well, I did want to briefly check in on the whole like great replacement theory stuff, because that's like where we're going with the whole like Buffalo shooter thing and all that stuff, right?
I'll just play these two cuts. This is Wes Lowry, who's a black activist reporter who's put himself in the middle of stories before. He's a hack and a con man talking to Brian Stelter, you know him.
Is our American society in which white Americans are being told and being poisoned through the internet, but also through some relatively mainstream media organizations on the right, being told that they're facing a demographic crisis and that they have to stand up for themselves. And
let's just be clear, Wes, you're talking about Tucker Carlson. You're talking about Laura Ingraham. You're talking about the biggest stars on Fox News.
Listen, Vladimir Putin, I have never asked anything from you. All that I ask is you to launch every single ICBM. And you know what? I'm not even asking for much. I know that a lot of your crap doesn't work well. Just destroy the East Coast, including my position right here, 42nd parallel up of the head part of Massachusetts.
Let's be clear. The stuff Tucker and Laura Ingraham say every night, it could be written by white supremacists very often. There's a section of this manifesto where the shooter starts talking about, people always say diversity is strength.
Yeah. So they've come up with this narrative about the Great Replacement theory. Unfortunately, it's been noted by a bunch of people on the right that all the thing, and I've said this on this show too, that Great Replacement theory is something the left came up with. Mm-hmm. They said that, due to demographic changes, the U.S. was going to become a majority-minority country. Ha ha, all the old white Republicans are dying. Not enough of you are being born. Sucks to be you. We're going to have Democrats forever. Yay! I was taught that in school by liberal teachers. That was a known thing. So, this was an understood thing on the left for many, many years. So now there's a sort of subtle shift that's occurring, in particular on Twitter with, I think they might have been left on, honey. Oh, your lights, hit Tom's salt lights. So there's sort of a subtle shift that's occurring where they're saying that in itself isn't Great Replacement theory on its own. In order for it to be Great Replacement theory, you have to believe that someone, frequently Jewish people, are orchestrating the immigration and the change in demographics in order to change the country so the Democrats will always win elections. And that's the racist Great Replacement theory. Just saying, ha ha, the U.S. is going to become a majority-minority country and Republicans will never win an election. That on its own, that's not Great Replacement theory. You have to think that the Jews are doing it, or it's not fully Great Replacement theory. Which, first of all, I don't think Tucker Carlson has ever said that. But second of all, I think it's obvious that Democrats want more immigration and more people of color. Isn't that a well-known thing that they push for all the time? Right. And exactly for that reason, because they say explicitly it will help them win elections. Mm-hmm. So, I don't understand. They're still pushing, quote, Great Replacement theory or whatever stupid thing we're calling it. Whatever it is, nobody on the right has really said anything that people on the left don't also say about it. It's really just, they've managed to rub some people the wrong way with the ha-ha finger pointing, all you white idiots are dying off, right? By saying that, they wigged some people out who were obviously psychotic people, like this kid who apparently was wearing a hazmat suit to his high school during COVID and just generally threatened to shoot up his high school, all kinds of stuff.
It also...
he was a nut.
Right. The idea of replacement theory is that, the one that you're talking about is the Jews with all the power are masterminding, bringing in new people to replace the people who are here. That's the crazy conspiracy. One of the crazy conspiracies, as you just said.
Right.
It wouldn't make any sense to kill black Americans who probably, many of them, got here in one sense or another 400 years ago.
Right.
They're not replacing anybody. They were here longer than the shooter.
Yeah, white people brought them here,
yes,
actually.
Exactly.
And not only that, I think that it's funny because a lot of the anti-immigration sentiment from the working class of this country comes from people of all kinds of races who have noticed, by the way, that a lot of low-scale immigration depresses wages for domestic low-scale workers, right? People have observed this phenomenon with their own eyes. They know that it's true. And we know that it's true right now. We have a labor shortage and their wages are up, right? So it doesn't take the genius eggheads running the economy to notice that if you import a bunch of cheap low skill labor that it will depress other people's wages, right?
Correct. All right, shall we get to the chat?
Let's get to the chat.
shouldn't be surprised because we've heard anti-Italian sentiment on the show before.
What's it talking
Talk about Saugus.
Ooh,
But this one
Alice.
takes the cake.
No, that's you.
Cake. It's Cento. Cento.
Cento?
That's the name of the brand. Not Cento. Cento.
Sorry.
Now go get your shine box.
Oh my goodness. You misgendered the clam sauce?
I guess I did. Sorry.
That is terrible.
I apologize to Italians everywhere. I promise to do better.
That is
I'll
terrible.
do the work. I've got to go to Italian restaurants.
I'm back.
My bike's back.
It's your bike. Hi,
Somebody missed me. Hi, Alice.
Hi.
Aren't you happy the bike's
I'm
back?
very happy the bike's back.
Hey, Tom, I completely agree with you. I can't stand it when Jethro the monkey boy decides to waterboard you with sarcasm simply because you're trying to find a part for your lawnmower or your pool. It just unnerves me that people feel they need to give you the history of supply chain issues in 2022.
Thank you. That's from the assault I had at the big store. Mm-hmm. This one happened to be Walmart. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm not looking down on the guy, by the way, but seriously, it's, effing just, I got no time, okay? Just tell me you don't have it or you have it. Don't take your moment of self-indulgence.
I hope you're not looking for water pumps.
That's exactly what it is. Don't take your moment like Karine St. John or whatever
Jean-Pierre.
Jean-Pierre, and bask in your superiority in that one moment, God. Ugh.
Hi, how's it going there, Burn Barrel? You ever notice people do impressions of me all the time? Oh my God, comes well.
I'm not a Harry Carey guy. I'm not a Will Ferrell guy. I don't like Ferrell doing Harry Carey. I'm not into it. Harry Carey was the play-by-play guy for the Cubs, Alice. Not into it. I like that he was supposedly drunk a lot while he was broadcasting. That's interesting. I like Bill Murray hanging out with him, but doesn't do anything for me. But not a bad impression of Will Ferrell's impression of Harry Carey.
Hey, Tom and Alice. I was just letting you know I'm okay.
Go.
I wasn't in the right frame of mind Sunday, so I didn't call. And I did just let you know I'm okay. I didn't take a handful of pills or anything. I'm alive and well. All right. Thanks. Love the show. Bye.
There we go.
Glad to hear from you.
That is good, by the way. By the way, don't have to apologize for not being in the right frame of mind to leave a recorded message on a podcast. You can go out and do life as well. I understand.
Hey, Tom and Alice. Today's bit of advice would go to Tom. There's this thing that you may have heard of that's called the internet.
Yes.
Where you can actually buy things online and people bring things to your house that may have saved you driving all over southern New Hampshire looking for your lawnmower battery. On a more serious note, with regard to...
Hold on 1 second. Let's address that first. Alice diagnosed it as needing a new battery and just said it was like $40. So it was an audible. Because first I tried to jump it, and so if we ordered it would have taken a few days. Where we live in Massachusetts, like I said,
our grass grows about a foot a day. It needs to be mowed again now. Today,
yes.
I was just out there.
It does. In the front is now it's going to need like machetes. It is too much.
The effort you're making to get formula back on the shelf, I haven't seen anybody talk about this, but many of the companies that make the protein shakes that you drink at Planet Fitness have the ability to change their lines over and do things like make formula. So I haven't heard anybody talk about that. So just thought I'd pass that along. Thanks as always, guys.
They probably could, but the FDA, I'm sure, wouldn't allow it.
Whoa, Alice. I need to get ripped here. I need those protein drinks. I'm sorry, children.
Drink.
I'm sorry, kids, toddlers, infants. The big T-Dog needs to get ripped here. It's summer.
I did hear tell that a reporter did get some footage of pallets of protein shakes and baby formula being dropped off at our
That's
driveway.
right. Summer bodies begin in winter, Alice. And so if I'm going to crush abs down in Nantasket Beach this summer and look good, I want to be ready.
Hi, Habibis. It's Liz. two stories that came across my Twitter today. I'm interested what you think about those, or perhaps you've already discussed those in today's podcast. First of all, that hack rag Rolling Stone put out a piece that the Buffalo shooter was your run-of-the-mill white Republican, contrary to all evidence. And Jerry Callahan highlighted that, as many of us in Massachusetts do when they put out these ridiculous lies. We all remind them that they're the ones that put the Boston bomber flashbang on their cover as a cover model and a sympathetic figure.
Oh, totally. His tousled hair, they went on endlessly about him.
Much in the way that lady did that Tom did like a live reading that he does for her every year on the anniversary of the Boston bomb.
Oh, that's right. Gish Jen.
So that was interesting out of Rolling Stone today, and I was very glad to shove that back right up their rear ends, as many of us have been. The second thing, ironically related to a magazine cover, is that apparently Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue released their cover that had a plus size model on it. And I'm wondering, Alice, if maybe this is something you want to address on the 1570 project with me or another guest, because it's very clear that Sports Illustrated and a bunch of these other outfits are trying to showcase the most unflattering photos of bodies in the world.
Alice?
So I think they're almost like doing a penance for how unwoke the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition was as a concept for so many years. They're trying to like get back in the good graces, much as like a bunch of these brands are. Calvin Klein was running huge plus size models a few years ago, and now they're running ads of pregnant men in their Calvins and everything else. Like anything that was about, the female form and beauty, or the male form for that matter, and traditional standards of beauty, that was reinforcing things that are now considered by the left to be like toxic beauty standards or whatever. They've gone like totally completely woke. It's all trans people, terribly overweight people, like it's every like worst, unhealthiest, most awful lifestyle that nobody finds attractive ever. And it's like complete gaslighting, right? It's like Emperor's New Clothes, like, you find this attractive, and people are like, no, we don't. And they're like, wow, you're really a bigot. That's incredible. Can't believe that you think these people aren't just as attractive as Kate Moss.
Right. No, and also it's they threw up Elon Musk's mother's in this edition, and so is Kardashian, and it's fine. It's just no longer what the swimsuit issue was. You're going to have to face the facts.
Well, and do people? So I'm wondering, because like men used to go buy the swimsuit edition to look at the pictures in it.
Right.
I mean, like, I know that the woke people like celebrate that they're doing this, but are any of them going out and buying Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition to like?
No, and it's a total loser. It's a total loser.
Like,
it's
I don't understand what the marketing thing is.
The Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue was the clearinghouse for the most gorgeous women in the world, the best photo shoot in the world, where all the most gorgeous women would get shot at the beach or wherever it was, and you can see them in bikinis. It was the top of the crop of gorgeous women. Now, if you're throwing out women who are absolutely not beautiful, and as a matter of fact are homely and like not good to look at, which is what they're doing now, that's fine.
And telling you love it.
Right. But you are now servicing a tiny niche. There's not really an audience to see Musk's mother and Kardashian and that huge woman. There's not an
some
audience.
people like the Kardashians. I know you're not one of them,
but there's not really. Okay, maybe that's why they threw her in there. But if you have Sports Illustrated for her magazine and you have all Tom Shaddocks in there, you might find the occasional out of 1,500,000 Alice who actually, for some ungodly reason, finds that attractive, which is sick. And I feel for you, Alice, and I hope that your religion will lead you to the light at some point. But it's going to be a tiny niche amount of people. I mean, it's ridiculous. So thank you, Leslie. Very good points. All of them as usual. My goodness, my goodness, my goodness.
That is the chat line. You can call into that by going to TomShattuck.com. You can go to burnbarrelpodcast.com and leave a message there. There's a red button you can use to record. Also, if you like the show, we would always love it if you would write us a review on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. That's supposedly helpful to the show's growth prospects. And you can always find us for free, of course, on Twitter at Burn Barrel Pod, Facebook.com/Burn Barrel Podcast, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts.